Hello, guys and gals, lords and ladies, saints and sinners of every kind. Welcome to Rise Up Jerusalem, your Catholic podcast for teens. I'm your host, Connor McLaughlin, and I want to talk about something that has been really blowing up over the last couple of weeks. Not the new Star Wars trailer, although that has been blowing up in my head and around my circle of friends because Star Wars! Everyone loves Star Wars. No, instead, I've heard a lot of people be complaining about Pope Francis and how he didn't talk enough about abortion at all while he was here in the U.S. A lot of people have actually been saying, oh my goodness, I've heard, is the Pope going to change the church's ruling on abortion? What's going to happen? You know, is he for abortion? What's going on? And honestly, I would like to put these rumors to rest because frankly, it's kind of odd that people are starting to think just because the Pope didn't talk about something that he's okay with it. And I think the real reason why people are kind of offended by the Pope's lack of discussion about abortion is that they're not used to a Pope being silent about it. When Pope John Paul II came to America, on his many trips to America, one of them, he said, "America, you are beautiful and blessed. This shows in the way that you treat every human, even the most vulnerable of you. So then, America, defend life." There's a really beautiful statement, and a lot of people were expecting something from the Pope. I mean, I'm sitting there watching it, and he's addressing Congress at one point, and I'm waiting for, he's talking about all this stuff, and he says that the conviction of the Golden Rule led him from the beginning of his ministry to advocate at different levels for the global abolition of, and I thought he was going to say abortion, and he said the death penalty. That was kind of a surprise for me because personally I don't see anything wrong with the death penalty. I'm more of the group that thinks that it's fine under certain circumstances, Evangelium Vitae and all that. But I'm not going to throw a fit about the fact that the Pope said, I've been against the death penalty. He's not stating what the church believes, he's saying his personal opinion. And that's really what it comes down to. You have to remember, the Pope is human. All humans have their own personal agenda. I highly recommend you go and read the transcript of what the Pope has said while he was in the U.S. because a lot of it is really beautiful, really well put together, very articulate, very, very Pope Francis-y, I almost want to say. Like many times he says, "Pray for me" at the end of his things, and "God bless America," and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I like the Pope. He has his own style to him. But don't get all of your information off what Pope Francis is saying off of news sources or such like that. No. And yes, that includes me because I kind of am a news source in this instance. Because I have my own agenda to push, just like every other news source. Every news source has an idea, and really every person has an idea of what they want to push. Pope Francis, being human, is going to have the same thing. Now, if we look at his two predecessors before him, they had ideas that they wanted to push. Pope John Paul II, very, very, very much for protecting the dignity of every human life. I mean, he was living in World War II, so obviously that's something that he was very concerned with, something that he held dear to his heart. Pope Benedict called relativism, moral relativism, the greatest scourge of our day, the greatest problem of our time. Each pope is going to have a certain particular thing that they're going to want to talk about, because that is what, they think is important and that needs to be talked about in the public eye at that time. Pope Francis has a few things that he is very, very keen on talking about. One of those, unfortunately, is not abortion. Is this an issue? No. Because if he, maybe he thinks, a lot of people have been discussing this. Maybe he thinks, there are other things that I think need more attention. One of the things that he talks about a lot is the prevention of pollution. And that is something that's very important to his heart because he has said where he's grown up, there have been issues with pollution in both the air, just protecting our common home, like he wrote in Laudato Si, which full name for it is Care for Our Common Home. I personally was not a fan of the encyclical. However, it was a bit too... I don't want to say political for me, but it's what the Pope is trying to put across. It's one thing he really likes to talk about. He talks about that to President Obama. He talks about that when he went to visit the UN. It's something that he is it's something that's near and dear to his heart. So it's something that he's going to want to talk about. Another thing that he quite often discusses is, of course, the family, because he was there for the World Meeting of Families. And I highly recommend you go back and read his impromptu speech at the Festival of Families. I'll put a link to that down in the description below because it's absolutely so beautiful where he talks about how important love is and that how love comes from God, and that because the love comes from God, God created the family to show love in the same way that he showed love by creating the human race. Absolutely just beautiful words of the Holy Father about Mary and the importance of a true family, the greatness that the family is a factory of hope, just these beautiful, beautiful words from Pope Francis. But people are still going to be talking about, oh, he didn't discuss abortion. Oh my gosh, the Pope is fine with abortion. Another thing the Pope holds near and dear to his heart is those who are imprisoned. He actually stopped at a jail while in the U.S. and talked to the inmates, saying that, yeah, I know you're here, and I'm sure if I talk to any of you, you're going to admit, yeah, I screwed up somewhere along the way, something went wrong. But remember, you're here for a reason, to get you back into society, to get you back on the right road, so that giving you a hand to help you rejoin society, it's an important thing. It's a rehabilitation which benefits and elevates the moral of your entire community. Another thing that the people have been talking about, that the Pope talks a lot about, that's a lot of words, is the poor, helping out the poor. Pope Francis has said that he's seen people who shouldn't be in a situation, and he actually visited a homeless shelter while in New York. He talked to the people, the homeless there, and he gave a blessing over the food. He told them how they were similar to St. Joseph, how just like St. Joseph, who didn't have a roof over his head when they went to Bethlehem, they had to have faith in God, and that's what would see them through. He also said that told them that there was absolutely no moral justification for anyone being without a home. That yes, it is an awful, awful thing, but it's something that they had to have faith in God and know that he would get them through. A few other things that the Pope talked about while he was in the U.S. He, of course, canonized St. Junipero Serra, which is a super, super, super cool thing that he did. I love St. Junipero Serra. It's hard. It's awkward not saying Blessed Junipero Serra. It's St. Junipero Serra now. He's a super great saint, a great American saint who has his statue on Capitol Hill, which is pretty cool. He also, when addressing Congress, said that they need to work together, reach across the aisle, cooperate, so that they could truly do goodness. I love this line that he says, "If politics must truly be at the service of the human person, it follows that it cannot be a slave to the economy and finance. Politics is instead an expression of our compelling need to live as one, in order to build as one the greatest common good, that of a community which sacrifices particular interests in order to share, in justice and peace, its goods, interests, its social life. I do not underestimate the difficulty that this involves, but I encourage you in this effort." Another thing that the Pope did is that there was a interreligious prayer service at the World Trade Center that the Pope was a part of. And he gave a really, really beautiful speech talking about the people who lost their lives on 9/11. He said that he met some of the families of people who had died, and that, yeah, he saw their grief and their pain, but at the same time he saw the power of love and remembrance, and that by remembering someone, they weren't truly gone, and the greatness that was them still lived on. And that's very almost cliche, but it's still beautiful to hear that from the Holy Father, and the way that he said it was absolutely perfect, saying it in such a way that it really seemed like a shepherd over his people, which is truly what the Pope is supposed to be. One thing I want to read in its entirety is what Pope Francis said on the West Wing, which is really, it's short, but it really encompasses what Pope Francis is. He's somebody who really meets people where they are, people of all religions, of all races, of all creeds. He says, "Good day to all of you. I thank you for your welcome and your presence. I thank the most important people here today, the children. I want to ask God to bless them. Lord, Father of us all, bless his people, bless each of them, bless their families, grant them what they need most. I ask you to pray for me. And if there are some among you who do not believe or cannot pray, I ask you to please send well wishes my way. Thank you very much, and God bless America." So yeah, that's some of the stuff that Pope Francis talked about while he was in America. Again, I highly recommend that you go back and read what he said, or even listen to what he said. Addressing Congress, he spoke in English, and while on the West Wing, he spoke in English as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, topics you want me to discuss, or if you think I'm just absolutely nuts crazy and the Pope really should have been discussing abortion with all of the recent things that have been going on with Planned Parenthood, then, I don't know, comment or shoot me an email at riseupjerusalem@gmail.com, and we'll see. I don't know. Maybe you may be right and I'm completely wrong. I'm willing to accept that fact, although I won't be very happy. Thank you for joining me on another episode. I'm Connor McLaughlin. Rise up and live.